Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Hard 100, a video series documenting the culling of my collection from what it is to what it's going to be. And that is a Hard 100 games. And today, we will be talking about a game that I've had my eye on for a while, or a version of the game. Not this version of the game. I own a game from Fantasy Flight called Blood Bowl Team Manager, the card game. It's out of print now. I managed to find all the expansions before that happened, and it is one of my favorite games. It's more of a smash up style, trying to get control of different areas and different games, and it's really fun and silly, and it uses a theme that I am just in love with. I love the Warhammer Blood Bowl kind of theme. I'm not really a big football guy. I'm not really a big standard Warhammer guy. I like the 40K stuff, but the fantasy stuff is ugh. But I love this weird football thing that they came up with. So much so that I was actually getting interested in Blood Bowl proper. It is quite a daunting task to get into for sure. So instead, I tried the video game and it was pretty good, but there's still something missing. I felt like there was something that I wanted to get that I wasn't getting. Maybe I just misunderstood what I thought Blood Bowl was. Maybe I was just upset that Blood Bowl wasn't what I wanted it to be. Was it a bad game? No, but it just wasn't what I wanted. But then something happened. Games Workshop decided to release a couple of board games. We talked about one of them last week, and this week we're talking about the other one. Ladies and gentlemen, let's get blitzed. Blitz Bowl, a game of gladiatorial sports mayhem by Games Workshop. And again, who the fuck knows who the designer is, because they don't put it on the box and I couldn't find it in the manual. Is a game for two players in which you and your opponent are going head to head in a game of quote unquote football. This is football in the way that if an alien had caught a game of football on TV once, but only caught like 10 minutes of it, and they decided to tell a friend at a party while drinking what football was, this is probably what they thought it would be. What we have here is a distilled version, as far as I understand it, of Blood Bowl. Each person plays a coach, and those coaches are on opposite sides of the board. You have your end zone, I have my end zone, and it's a grid in the middle. On your turn, you do 3 actions. That's it. This game is so simple that anyone can play. There are a couple of intricacies on what you can do and kind of how some of this stuff works. It's way more simple than Blood Bowl is. It's more simple than my Blood Bowl card game. It's more simple than the video game. This is a very beer and pretzels version of Blood Bowl. One person plays the humans, one person plays the orcs, and you go at it to try to see who can score the most points by the time runs out, which in this case is a deck of cards, a deck of challenge cards that act as the game's clock. There's also a mercy rule in effect that if one person ever scores 10 points or more on the other person, the game is over and they win automatically. So like I mentioned, your turn is very easy. All you have to do is on your turn, you can do 3 actions. You can have one person do an action 3 times, or you can have 3 separate people do an action once. Actions are as follows. If you are open, you have a few options at your disposal. You can run. Every card has a couple of stats on it. It has a move stat, a throw stat, and an armor stat. The move is a number. You can move up to that number. Easy peasy. If you are open, you can also mark a player. When you run, you can't run adjacent to someone. So in order to get next to someone, in order to block them and tackle them down, you actually have to mark them. All you do is move 2 spaces, but you have to end next to a person. Or you can throw. You take the player's throw stat, you throw it at your person, you use a little ruler to determine, there's a couple of modifiers, and then if you succeed, they catch the ball. If you fail, the ball bounces, and if you fail so bad, you actually fumble it and it bounces around. The way the ball bounces is there's a little chart in the upper corner. You roll a D8, which is a 8-sided die, and then the ball will bounce accordingly, and it can double bounce if someone's not ready for it. So if you have someone next to you, it's not the end of the world. What you can do is you can block, which is this version's game of tackling. You have specific dice and you roll those, and depending on what comes up, you will do either a tackle, a push, you can miss, and there's also various strengths of it. There's a tackle that you can do where that person can't take any more turns because they're basically exhausted, or that person can take an additional turn. You can also sidestep. So if you want to mark and move in, you can sidestep and move out. No problem. You move 1 space to try to get away from somebody, and throughout the game, there's no opportunity of attack or attack of opportunity like in D&D where the other person kind of come at you. If you are tackled, you roll a die, which is your armor value. So you roll a 5 or more. And if you roll that, you're just prone, you're knocked down, and a prone player can stand back up. Or if you're not able to roll your armor, you get sent to the dugout. The dugout is just where injured players go, and then if you are injured in the reserve, another action you can do is to bring one of your people out to the field. It sounds like a lot, but essentially at the end of the day, you're running around trying to capture this ball that feels like it's alive, and when you get the ball, you're trying to run it to the end zone of the opponent for points. 3 points, actually. Now, what spices it up, our timer, is the cards that we're flipping over, and those cards have different challenges on them. So for example, if you knock 2 people down during this action, claim this card. If you pass the ball, claim this card. If you have 2 people in your end zone, claim this card. There's all kinds of different things. And the challenge cards also have point values on that you can get those points for completing the challenges. So you can get points 2 ways. You can either run it in for a touchdown, or you can complete these challenges. Both will give you points, and those points win the game. Or there's various copies of that card, but what makes it different is once you claim that card, it goes in your hand and you get to look at the back of the card. And these are all the take that's gonna get you kind of cards. So for example, if I was to get a card, the back might say, oh, when an opponent tries to run, I can try to block them. If an opponent throws, I can try to block them. Oh, I can take an extra turn. They're not as brutal as you would think. The worst card that we saw is when I tried to tackle someone, Phil played a card that said, oh, you can't tackle. But I got my action back. So the take that is not as, oh my God, it's, no, I got my action back and it was fine. But it is more inconvenient than really like game-changingly terrible. So there's no player elimination or things like that. And then if you want to, you can also put some in-game challenge cards in there. And the in-game challenge cards are like extra crazy spicy stuff, including catch-up mechanics where now my points are worth more until I get more than you. We can add an extra ball into the arena. It's all kinds of craziness. The components for this game are pretty great. We have the dice, which are all custom. We have the minis that we have to put together. We have the board that is 2-sided. We have a standard and then kind of an advanced field. The minis. So you do have to put together these minis. And I will say this, they're very easy to put together, but unlike Space Marine Adventures where I could pop them out with my hands, I actually had to get my clippers out to take care of these. And it was a little more involved than the other kind. It's a little more in line with actual Warhammer hobby. They are pushed to fit. No. The humans are pushed to fit. I was able to put together every single human without a drop of glue. But the orcs would not stay together. Some of them would not stay together at all. I just put a head on and it'd fall off. So I actually had to bust out the plastic glue that I had and glue them and hold them in, but now they're fine. Now another note about the minis is I'm not sure the ones that aren't glued versus the ones that are glued. They are kind of rattling around loose in the box. I don't know how well and how long they will stay together, but I did a little bit of a drop test on a couple of them and hey, they stuck together for me. But just keep in mind that if you're expecting to open this from shrink wrap to the table, you're gonna have a little bit of difficulty with some of these orc minis because they're not gonna push to fit together. It's gonna take a little bit of setup, but once you set it, you're done. And they look awesome. And they are fucking sharp. I poked my finger so many times and all their little spiky bits and armor and all the everything. I can only imagine how this game is if those spikes are metal and not little sharp plastic. Housekeeping. 2 players. Obviously you can't play with yourself, giggity, but you can play with another person. 40 minutes. The first time we played it, it was about 45, so not too bad. Ages 8 and up. Yeah, it's a pretty simple game. Like I mentioned, on any given turn, you have maybe 6 players, and that's basically it. You're able to spread your actions. It's a very fast-paced game, and it really kind of drives home the tension, as it were. What's also really nice, the game is very thematic. There are a lot of little cards and things that will kind of drive home the theme. For example, whenever you score a touchdown at the beginning of the game, the ball comes through a trap door. And if you have anyone standing on that trap door, they will fall through and go to the dugout before the ball pops out. Just little fun, silly stuff like this. Now, if you are already a fan of Blood Bowl, this is a simple version, maybe a gateway version to get people really involved in your hobby. But if you have the friend who just doesn't play Blood Bowl, but they're into this, you can take your Blood Bowl minis and use them in this game. The game actually comes with card decks for Dwarves, Skaven, and a couple of other factions. And the September issue of White Dwarf magazine, the Games Workshop magazine, comes with the cards for the Dark Elves. So if you have those, you can use them. And I can only assume they're going to be releasing more of the card packs, but not necessarily the minis, because the minis are already out there in the wild. But you can use them, which is actually a really cool thing. So this game here, Blitz Bowl, a game of gladiatorial combat, mayhem, and all this crazy stuff. Is this a game that I want to play again? Is this a game that I want to maybe try out some of the other factions? Because I don't have to buy the minis. I can just use the cards as reference and then proxy all the minis to say, oh, I'm the dwarves this time. I loved this game. I fucking loved it. This is the Blood Bowl that I've been looking for. And I finally found it. Blitz Bowl, it's right here. This game was $45 at Barnes & Noble. The other game was $40, and I felt like the jump in quality is negligible. The insert here is kind of non-existent, but all the cards are big. The art is beautiful. I love this style art. The minis are great. The orcs look fucking awesome when you put them together. All this made me want to do is play it again. It's just fun. This is one of those classic kind of board games where when I was a kid, I imagined what a board game was. It was things like Monopoly and Scrabble and Sorry and those kind of games. And then Risk is one of them. This is kind of the idea of what a board game is. It's just not a lot of components, not a lot of rules. It's just our ability to play it. We're not playing against the game so much so we can play against each other. And if you don't like that head-to-head, you might not like it, but it's not so mean. I will say this. The game is 40 minutes, so let's say we played 45. The first 25 minutes of that, there was not a single touchdown scored. It was all getting our people where we wanted to get them until we finally scored a point. But then after that, there were like 6 touchdowns. All the players are so spread apart that everyone's able to kind of run more freely and weave and dodge, and it was crazy. After you score a touchdown, he goes to the dugout, I'm assuming for all the props and the free booze and everything, and then the ball pops back out again, and it's great. Blitz Bowl is beautiful, and it's wonderful, and I love it, and you should buy it. It's in the Hard 100. Ladies and gentlemen, this game is great for my shelf. If you have someone who you enjoy playing kind of one-on-one games with and you're a little kind of aggressive towards each other, or even not, look at it. This is the game that I've been wanting for years. And they finally made it, and I can't wait for them to make more. I'm hoping, I don't know how deep I'll go down this rabbit hole as far as other minis and stuff. I just need the cards. But I can't wait. I hope they do, like with Space Marine Adventures, I hope they really do start releasing cards for this so I can play more factions and have more rules and more silliness. It's just a good time. It's just a fun, simple game that I feel like has a lot of replay value because the game itself is simple enough to where the replay comes from playing against the person across the table. Ladies and gentlemen, this has been the Hard 100. Thank you so much for joining me in this. I hope you and yours are well. Have a safe and happy whatever time of year this is. Peace out. I just have like 6 seconds of you jerking off midair.